Hey everyone, I just wanted to take some time today to go through the difference in change in quantity demanded versus a shift in overall demand. As some people have been struggling with this, I wanted to make sure we all know the difference. Starting with looking at the law of demand. So if we are looking at this top graph here, you can see always, no matter what graph we are looking at, P will always be on the y-axis. P stands for price. On the x-axis, you can see the Q, and when we are talking about demand, Q stands for quantity demanded. So this top graph, again, is showing us the law of demand. Now, if you'll remember, the law of demand looks at the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded of a good. And they generally have an inverse relationship to each other. So as the price of a product is low, the quantity demanded will be high. And then the opposite is also true. If the price of a product is high, the quantity demanded will be low. So as we can see here, if we're looking at P1, labeled in red here, you can see as it is placed on the y-axis, this is showing us a lower price. So at this lower price, if we were to follow it here to the demand curve, we can see at this price, this red Q1 shows us the quantity demanded for that good. Now, if we were to see an increase in price going from P1 to P2, and we were to follow that to the demand curve, and then follow it down to the quantity demanded, you can see, again, a change in the quantity demanded from Q1 to Q2, going to the left. As the price went up from P1 to P2, the quantity demanded went down from Q1 to Q2. Okay, so this is showing us the law of demand. As the price of a product increases, the quantity demanded will decrease. Now remember, as we are looking at graphing a change in quantity demanded, movement on the curve, as shown from this red dot to this blue dot, remember, a change in price is the only thing that can cause a change in quantity demanded. So whenever we see movement on the demand curve itself, as we see with these two dots, that is demonstrating to us a change in price. And remember, a change in price is the only thing that can cause a change in quantity demanded. So this is looking at a change in quantity demanded. Now, if we are moving to the bottom graph, this is then showing us the second part of demand that we started looking at last Friday. The bottom graph shows us a shift in overall demand, meaning these are quantities that people are willing to buy at the same price. Now, if you'll remember from our discussion last Friday, there are 5 determinants of demand. Those 5 determinants of demand are the only thing that can cause a shift of the demand curve itself. Now, when I say a shift of the demand curve, it's an actual movement. So you can see here, if we're looking at the graph at the bottom of the screen, the black demand curve labeled D1, this is, let's say, our original demand curve, if you will. Now, if we're looking at the red arrow going to the right with the drawing of the new red demand curve labeled as D2, this is showing us an increase in demand, okay? And then the opposite is true for the blue demand curve, the arrow going to the left, and drawing, again, the blue demand curve labeled as D2. Remember, if we are shifting a curve to the right, that always signals an increase in overall demand, while if we shift it to the left, that is showing us a decrease in overall demand. Now, to hit this point home, if I were to, let's say, put a price here, I'm going to label that as P1. Okay, let's say it's right here. If I were to draw that over to this original demand curve, you will see at this original price, if we were to draw it down here, looking at the quantity demanded, okay, this would be the quantity demanded at this price. But now, let's say, for example, if we're looking at these 5 determinants of demand, which I've listed here, let's say a change in consumer income. As many Americans can vouch for, unfortunately, right now, many people have seen a decrease in their income due to the pandemic, and many people have lost their job due to the pandemic as well. So if we see a change in consumer income, someone loses their job, for example, this D curve that was originally at D1 is now going to shift to the left, because people are going to be demanding less goods as their income has decreased. So if we were to draw this new demand curve, again labeled as D2 in blue, and it's at the same price, the price is not changing, remember, different from the curve above us, looking at the law of demand. Remember, we're looking at a shift in demand. So at the same price, the demand curve itself shifted to the left because people have lost their job, so they had a change in their income, okay? Now at that same price, the price of the product is not changing, but the demand curve did. The demand for any product, let's say you're looking to buy some new shoes, but if you lost your job, your demand for shoes, the quantity that you'll be able to buy is going to be significantly less, okay? So at this price, remember the price is not changing, but the demand is. You can see here, again, quantities people are willing to buy at the same price. So this is showing us a decrease in demand. Showing us looking at a decrease in demand. Now let's say we are going to do it once more, but however, plotting it, showing an increase in overall demand. Okay, so now let's change the price again. So we're just going to label this P1 for this sake. Now again, remember, these 5 determinants listed down here, these are the only things that can cause a shift in overall demand. So if we're looking at our original demand curve here in black, okay, I'm going to change the color just to make it a little bit easier to see. Let's try green. Sorry about that. So making it a little bit easier for everyone to see. So our original demand curve, again, this black curve here in the middle labeled as D1. At this price, we see here at their original demand, this is the quantity demanded. Okay, we'll label that as Q1. But now, instead of a decrease in demand like we did with the last example, we are seeing an increase in demand. So we went from D1 here in black, and then we shifted it to the right in red. Again, drawing the new demand curve in red labeled as D2. Let's say as opposed to a change in consumer income by losing your job, let's say you get a raise at your job. Okay, the price of these products have not changed, but your demand for the products have changed because you have more money now to spend on the products. So that increases the overall demand for that product based on your income. Okay, so if we were to draw that down here, you can see an increase in the quantity demanded. We went from Q1 here, and then that shifted over to the right. So the quantity demanded increased. The price of the product, remember, is not changing from D1 here in black to D2 here in red. Remember, it's quantities people are willing to buy at the same price. Just to hit this idea home here a little bit better, changing my pen color, give me 1 second. So again, this is changing quantity demanded, looking at the law of demand. Let's say the scenario is you are at the grocery store looking to buy some avocados. The price for one avocado is $3. So if we were to plot that here, okay, we were to say, put it at $3, kind of a high price, and we're going to draw it over here to the demand curve, coming down. This would be our Q1, also showing us the quantity that you would demand at $3. You leave and you decide to come back another day because you don't really want to spend $3 on one avocado. So when you come back, again changing my pen color to show a change, when you come back, the price has gone from $3 to $1.50 for one avocado. Okay, 1.5, and then again we're going to draw it over here to the demand curve. Signify that with a little dot on the demand curve, and then at this price now, you are willing to buy more avocados as the price went from $3 to $1.50. Okay, again, this is showing us the law of demand. As the price of the product goes down from $3 to $1.50, we saw then the quantity demanded increase from Q1 to Q2. And then finally, a shift in overall demand. Let's say this is our event. Keep in mind, those 5 determinants of demand are the only thing that can cause a shift, a movement of the demand curve itself. So let's say you got a raise at your job. Okay, again, remember to always label the first demand curve as D1. So if you got a raise at your job and you are looking at buying some new shoes, Now the determinant that is going to cause this change is a change in your income because you got a raise at your job. So if we're seeing an increase in demand because you have more money, again, we're going to draw an arrow to the right, and then we're going to draw a new demand curve to signify that shift in demand. And again, you're always going to label it as D2. Okay. So remember, the price isn't changing, the overall demand itself is changing. And remember, only the 5 determinants of demand can shift, aka move the demand curve itself, whether it's moving it to the right to show an increase in overall demand, or if it's moving it to the left to show a decrease in overall demand. Price, a change in price, does not shift or move the curve either way. If you have questions about anything related to a change in quantity demanded or a shift of the overall demand curve, as always, please be sure to message me on Schoology or try to set up a time to talk over WebEx.